It has been claimed that one of the most frightening aspects of modern youth culture in Britain is the supposed propensity for boys and youths to carry, and even on occasion use, knives. The suggestion is made that this problem is now endemic in certain parts of the country, especially the big cities. In 2015, the law was changed so that anybody found carrying a knife in a public place would, after a second conviction, face a mandatory prison sentence. This became known as the second strike and you're out policy. Just as with the creation of the mechanism for dishing out ASBOs, antisocial behaviour orders, this law was in response to a perceived problem which our legislators saw as being new and alarming. It's not necessary for anything to be done with the knife. It is enough that it is being carried around in somebody's pocket. Draconian measures of this sort have felt necessary to tackle what is sometimes known as the knife culture. The carrying of a knife is one of the commonest reasons for exclusion from school, and even primary schools are now having to take steps actively to detect and deter pupils from carrying knives. I want viewers to imagine, if they will, a time when practically every schoolboy in the land owns or carries a knife. Possession of edged weapons is an accepted fact of life, and parents even encourage this unhealthy state of affairs by buying knives and giving them to their sons for birthdays and Christmas presents. This knife culture is even reinforced by the church. Cathedrals across the country sell knives for children in their souvenir shops, with pictorial representations of the cathedral on their hilts. Knives are one of the most popular items for children to bring back from holidays at the seaside. The largest youth organisation in the country encourages members openly to wear sheath knives on their belts. In schools, games involving the throwing and brandishing of knives are enormously popular among pupils, even for those below the age of 11. Incredibly, teachers smile indulgently at all this, tolerating the display of weapons. The police make no attempt to discourage the carrying of knives, taking it for granted that most boys will have one in their possession, either at school or in the street. This imaginary excursion has taken us not to some remote and dysfunctional foreign country, nor to a strange and dystopian future, but rather back to the cosy childhood world of the British baby boomers. In those days, one would have been hard pressed to find a boy who did not own several penknives, some with razor sharp blades 4 or 5 inches long. Many of these were souvenirs from the seaside or school trips, with gaily coloured coats of arms or depictions of townscapes, castles, or cathedrals, and so on, covering the handles. The penknife was for many years an integral feature of British boyhood. These knives, which are known sometimes as pocket knives, were originally devised, as the name suggests, to be carried on the person and used for sharpening quills into serviceable pens. Even when the nib of a quill has been sh- carved, it's still prone to getting twisted or mangled during writing, and so it was necessary to mend it from time to time. A folding knife which could safely be carried in the pocket was the very thing for this. Because it had such innocuous origins associated with learning and literacy, the penknife was not viewed in the same way as other knives. A youth armed with a bowie knife might be up to no good, but wearing a penknife in one's pocket was viewed in quite a different light. Due to the various attachments with which penknives typically came, they were often seen as useful tools rather than knives per se. Bottle and can openers, little saws, screwdrivers, the thing for getting stones out of horses' hoofs. The list of supplementary gadgets on a good penknife was endless. At the heart of the thing, though, its very raison d'etre, one might say, was a sharp blade. When debate in the press turns to the subject of knife crime, it is as well to recall the state of affairs which once existed in this country regarding the carrying of knives by children and young people, for it helps to put modern views in context. Worries about the carrying of blades and the legislation which has imposed such savage penalties on the practice of boys having knives in their pockets are all based on the assumption that children today are somehow different and far more ungovernable and wild than those of 60 years ago. It might have been safe for those who are now members of the judiciary or who sit in the legislature to carry knives around all the time when they were youngsters, but such a state of affairs can certainly not be tolerated with today's youth. The preponderance of knives in childhood at one time is reflected in children's fiction. William Brown and his friends from Richmal Crompton's Just William stories were enthusiastic carriers of knives. William's parents gave him a knife for a Christmas present, and when he went to stay with a relative, he was presented with a Burmese sheath knife by a retired army officer. Knives feature in quite a few of the Williams stories. Even in girls' school fiction, knives make an appearance as quite an unremarkable part of everyday life among children. The first chapter of Autumn Term, school story by Antonia Forrest, published in 1948, is called Blade with Six, a Knife with 16 Blades. It has as the protagonist 12-year-old Nicola Marlowe. She goes off to boarding school, taking with her a knife with no fewer than 16 blades. This is openly displayed, and none of the pupils nor staff bat an eyelid at the thought of such a young child waving the thing about. Fictional it may well have been, but in real life too, there was a general assumption by teachers that boys, and sometimes girls, would be carrying knives. If some minor job in the classroom required a screwdriver, for instance, the teacher might well ask if anybody had a penknife handy, whereupon a dozen boys would volunteer theirs. A boy who never carried a knife during the baby boomer era would have been regarded as something of an oddity. Viewers may care to ask themselves what it is which has changed and transformed knives from being a healthy accompaniment to normal boyhood into something about which we must all be alarmed. I've been thinking about this lately, and I haven't yet been able to come up with a reasonable answer. It's an odd state of affairs that we should panic now about knives when only a few years ago we just took them for granted.